Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 21 of Lockdown Dads. My name's Ian Dinwiddie. I'm a coach. I'm the founder of Inspiring Dads, a business that helps dads to balance their work and fatherhood. And my co-host today is...
As always, I'm James Miller, editor of workingdads.co.uk, author of Dads Don't Babysit, just there, and father of two. And yeah, delighted to have a guest this week. I have gone, you might notice I'm not wearing a shirt this week because I have gone cash for Yash. It's Yash Puri, who is founder, editor, man behind Papa Penguin, which we'll get him to explain exactly what that's all about very shortly. But welcome along, Yash. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's pleasure. Excited, actually. It's a nice way to end the week.
Yeah.
Another week done. It's a good way to end it with a bit of banter.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to in the current.
We've actually got a calendar in the house, and my wife and I literally, it's like, we've done another week. This is fantastic.
Well, all right, Diego, that feeds to our first question every week. Let's ask you first. I mean, it's a question that used to be so easy to answer, but it's now very loaded. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm actually all right now because I'm wearing this cap, which means I've been to the gym and I've got rid of all my pressure and anxiety and stress, and I've resetted myself. So I'm good. Right now, I'm perfectly well. And I'll keep this cap on throughout tonight so everyone knows in the household, Daddy's in a good state.
Is there a bad mood hat? Is there a different hat for when Daddy's in a bad mood?
I've got loads of hats. I've got a closet of hats. Yeah, there's different meanings for each hat.
It's kind of like a signpost to everyone. It's like, tread carefully. Daddy hasn't been to the gym, or it's one of those days. Is that how it works, Yash?
Now, do you know what? I think it's all about communication, just being open and honest with each other. So to your question, yeah, we're all right. I think where we are now in October, much better to where we were, I'd say, middle of the year. It's been interesting. I'm sure it's been interesting for everyone out there. James, you and I caught up earlier on a couple of weeks ago. And for me, when this all kicked in, the whole pandemic, it was really exciting in a way. It was exciting because for us, for the first time, we would be together as a family, and everything we wanted and dreamt of, we finally had it on our doorstep. It was like, brilliant. And the thing for me was no more commuting to Canary Wharf. I can actually use that time to chill out with the family and have a calm breakfast, not running around doing drop-offs. I don't have to worry about Sunday shaving, can grow a beard. It's fantastic. I don't have to worry about ironing my shirts. And so we're focusing on all those aspects. Obviously, there's a bit of panic in terms of make sure we get our food supplies and keep safe. But really, I think we entered the pandemic with hope, opportunity. This is a time for change. This is where we can make things happen for real now. We don't need to rely on government changing policies and making it better working environments for fathers. This is now the time to do it. So we went in it with full energy, and I spent the first couple of weeks, and I'll say the month, posting on my Instagram on Papa Penguin. Look at me, I'm amazing. I'm looking after the kids. I'm working. I'm wearing a vested jacket. I'm working at the same time. I'm cooking. How cool am I? This is like I'm amazing, right? So I was on that trajectory for a good couple of weeks and months. Look at Yash. Look, everyone on Instagram. I can now do a plait. How amazing am I? Yeah, this is fantastic. I've got this under control. I can do my daughter's plait and not have to rely on my wife to do it in the mornings. I'm in control. And it carried on. Arts and craft. This is brilliant. I'm making a backpack out of toilet roll and tissue paper and all. This is brilliant. We're like recycling to another level. We're like creating stuff, and creativity is buzzing in the household. But then, I'd say for 4 or 5 weeks, I couldn't do any more cooking while I was working. I couldn't do any more arts and crafts. I got sick and tired of all the boxes we had in the corner of the room. And it just got to a point where survival mode. We were in survival mode, right? Gone were the moments of, this is luxury, this is exactly what we wanted. And it became reality, how hard this actually was. My daughter and my son were both out of nursery. We decided to keep them at home, create our own bubble. And that's when it got, oh my goodness. So my wife was working at work as well remotely. I'm working. Everyone's trying to work out what's going on. Projects are still critical and need to get delivered. The kids are loving it. They've got both their parents on tap. So for them, they're oblivious to what's going on. And we made a conscious effort not to just put on TV and just put them there. And so we're basically very reactive. We're trying to work out how we're going to manage this. And it became to like every hour, we're trying to work out what was going on. And then my wife and I sat down and said, look, we've got to change the game plan here. So, every Sunday evening we'd sit down, we'd plan the week ahead, we'd work out what she could do, what I could do, literally hand the baton over in terms of who's into the childcare. And I played the game as I'm super dad. Don't worry, you do all of your meetings. I'm gonna save the world. Don't worry. My wife's like, look, Yash, be realistic, because when you went down that route, you're getting stressed out because you're trying to do the childcare and manage your calls. Just tell me when you need my help. No, it's fine. I'll manage it. And she was happy to cancel her calls or put blockers in. But me, no, Mr. Yash was like, no, I'm going to be the perfect dad. I'm going to make sure I'm there. And I was actually failing myself. I was actually failing the family because I was being honest and open about what help I needed, right? This pandemic's given me an opportunity to be the perfect dad. And therefore, I'm not going to cancel any meetings. I'm just going to work and cook and look after the kids and put them to bed and do everything. And I would come back at the end of the day, and my wife would say, look, you're obviously stressed out. You're doing too much. And I think the penny dropped. And I thought, yeah, okay, I've got to be realistic now. This is for the long haul. This is not short term now. And that's when the penny dropped with me in terms of sitting down on a Sunday and actually being open. Right, I may not have meetings at this time, but I need some time at my desk. So why don't you then just block it out for me? So it's got much better now. I think now it's the machine is working the way it needs to work.
Roller coaster, isn't it? It's the roller coaster
Yeah.
we've been on. It's ups and downs, and it can be week to week or even hour to hour. Sometimes the roller coaster goes up and down. It's but yeah, I mean, communication. So many people have said. I think we've all found, even those of us who maybe thought we were good at communication, it's gone to a different level, right? In this, you've got to be.
I'm using hats now. I'm using hats to communicate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've covered tips already. I mean, there's your tip of the week. Communicate by hats. That's an interesting one. Okay. I'll offer how I am before anybody asks this. There you go. Because I sort of think the roller coaster is quite a good one, because it feels, I don't know. It feels like the roller. I don't know. I thought I said this last week to some extent. It feels like the roller coaster is sort of between two loops at the moment. It feels like the roller coaster is now sort of just sitting, doing this, going back and forward before we go up. Well, here we go. We're going to go into something big again. It's a bit sort of the doldrums. It feels a bit like at the moment. You just there's something coming around the corner, but I don't know when. And I tweeted this morning. I think that is not helpful for parents at half term. There's an issue here, and it may well be my column for the Press and Journal next week about how families always seem to end up at the bottom of the pile when it comes to policy. We've got half term to think about, but I don't know if I can see grandparents. I don't know if I can travel anywhere. I don't know, because something's going to change, and it's changing by the day, and it just seems it's a shit show. That's what it is. It's a shit show.
Do you know what? It's interesting, James, because I think we as a household have been operating, looking at the rules as a tier 2. We've created a bubble. We're not mixing inside anyone's houses. When lockdown kicked off, we kind of kept to those rules. We didn't jump off and get excited and try to go back into normality. So whatever's happening right now, thankfully for us, it's not going to impact us because we've been on that journey and kept to it. We didn't change the rules for us. So with tier 2 being announced, it's fine.
Well, yeah, okay, well, that's quite a good. I mean, with hindsight, that worked out pretty well.
We're not going to react to what the policy changes are at the moment of the government, because, like you say, it's you can't plan. So, in order for us to survive and in order for us to work for us, we're just going to assume and carry on assuming we cannot go in people's houses. We haven't got support to come in the house. And we're going to have to carry on operating like that.
Yeah, well, I think that probably works quite well if that works. I mean, it's basically what works for anyone. I mean, my son's having a birthday party tomorrow, and that had to change between Thursday and Friday, because once tier 2 came in, we couldn't have. Well, it was like, these are all kids that he's at school with, right? So what's the problem with having them in the house? But one of the parents was like, "Oh, right, you can't have people in the house." It's like, okay, I respect that. Whatever works for everyone, whatever gets you through. If you want to say we're going to, obey the rules really strictly, that's fine. And similarly, if you perhaps say we're going to bend the rules slightly, I have also no problem with that. Whatever works to get people through this, I think I think that's one of the big issues, isn't it? It's respecting other people's right to just do things, to do what works to them, obviously within reason, not not going around costing people and all the rest of it, but within reason. I think that's a big one. A lot of I was in an interesting webinar this week saying that the mask wars have now replaced Brexit as the big dividing line. Brexit is actually melting away, and now people who wear masks think people who don't wear masks are evil, and vice versa, and that's the new dividing line. But that's for a different podcast. Let's talk about. Let's cover off the final one of the triumvirate. Ian, how are you this week?
Better than I was last week. Last week I was a bit down, really, wasn't I? I wasn't that excited. We finished our 2 weeks of self-isolation. My daughter's 2 weeks of self-isolation, just in time for tier 2. So she had a delayed shopping trip with one of her best friends and mums and best friends and that kind of thing. And that was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago. Then it was going to happen on Saturday, and now that's obviously not happening. So we've got a tiny window. This afternoon is the window when my daughter can have a friend round, because that's still okay, because it's not breaking the rule of 6. And she could be inside, and so she's coming for tea before we go into that. Interesting what you said, James, about half term. I don't know, we've got 2 weeks of half term. I mean, I know we've been, government have been talking about, or half-heartedly trailing this idea that we might all shut down and everything stops 2 weeks. Everyone's 2 weeks or 1 week is different. I think, there are some similarities. Our second of our 2 weeks, we're actually going to Center Parcs in Wiltshire. So last night, we are. Center Parcs are great. They've got a great refund system. Let's just put it that way. But last night, we went and booked all of our activities we wanted to do and that kind of thing. And there was this real kind of sense of, is this really worth it? Are we, we're in a tier 2 area going to a tier 1, I think.
Right.
I think that's okay, but we can't have anyone come with us because we're a tier 2, and we were going to have grandparents with us, but it just gets
confusing.
Yeah, and we just hold our breath and hope for the best.
I learned this from Jeremy Vine, right? The national cretin that is Jeremy Vine did a phone in today, and it was like, you always work to the highest level. So if you're level 2 going to level 1, tier 2 going to tier 1, then you still obey tier 2 rules. But if you're tier 2 going to tier 3, then you obey tier 3 rules. So, that's as simple as that. It's the only time I've ever learned anything from Jeremy Vine.
So half term, I mean, hey, we're going to Center Parcs. We've got stuff booked. Of course it'll happen.
I really hope it does.
So do I.
Let's talk about let's move on and talk about Yash's penguin thing. Penguin. Let's face it, a bit weird, he's a penguin man, but there is a good reason behind it. So I'll let him explain. Yash, explain why you are Papa Penguin.
Yeah, interesting one. So it just kind of happened organically, I'd say. So I was on shared parental leave, which I decided to take with my second because I hadn't taken any leave with my first. And that's probably because I wasn't really educated in terms of what I could take. In my mind, I was too focused on my career and didn't want to pause that. And it wasn't until my second, my wife said to me, look, you should think about taking some time out. And I said, yeah, I will. She goes, I'm not talking about holidays. I'm talking about taking some formal parental leave. And she's all clued up on this stuff. So I was like, okay, I never heard about this shared parental leave. What is it? So she educated me. So I went to my HR team and obviously got it all signed off, and it's not an issue at all. So took 3 months out in total. And I was just updating my LinkedIn while I was off and just put in shared parental leave. I was updating my position in the organization, just so I can be vocal about it. And then a BBC journalist got hold of me saying, we're looking for someone to talk to about someone who's come back from shared parental leave recently. Would you mind talking about experience? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I did that, and then within 24 hours, it was up on BBC News website on the business page, front image with the image of me, which I hadn't planned to happen. And it got a lot of momentum. There's a lot of fathers that I knew in my network that reached out to me saying, wow, you're so lucky that you got shared parental leave. Or actually, you're so lucky you had 3 months off work. You work for a great organization. No, good on you. Others were like, I never knew we could take shared parental leave. I thought it was luck. And I'm not quite sure what luck was based on. And it got me thinking about, there's people out there, just like me when I had my first, they've got no idea about their rights, and yet they want to take time out with their children. There's got to be something here. I've got to start doing something with this. I can't just say, I've done my BBC News thing. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Take a bow. Off I go. So I thought, what can I do with this? So I was thinking about creating a blog site and just sharing some stories. I thought, keep it simple. This is not a business. I'm just going to create a blog site where I'll try and get other dads to contribute about their experiences of taking parental leave, or just being stay-at-home dads or part-time dads, because there's a lot of great stories out there. And so I thought, what do I call this thing? And I had various names. I can't remember. I got some silly ideas that came across. And I think over a weekend, I was sitting down watching Dynasty, David Attenborough's Dynasty program on BBC iPlayer. And it was the penguin episode where the father sits and looks after the egg before it hatches while mummy goes out to fill herself with food and energy so she can come back and feed her little penguin. And I was watching that, I thought, what, that daddy penguin he's a G. He's brilliant. Like, he's just sitting there in the cold. That's a brilliant role model. And that another thing, I didn't have a role model. I couldn't look at any of my peers. And with all due respect, my father's a fantastic father, but it's a different generation. He came to this country and he had to work in a factory to get a standard living for us. And he was there. My mum was working in the factory in the nights. My dad actually raised me. So I think in my mind, subconsciously, in the back, I always knew that I wanted to be like my dad, like be a hands-on dad. But he wasn't the role model in terms of taking time out of work. He was there in the evenings, putting us to bed, feeding us, while mum would work till like 4 in the morning. Then we wouldn't see her. Dad would go to the factory. And so when I say role model, there was no one in my network that I had known or knew of that has taken some kind of leave of that length. So I had to look to the animal kingdom to say, that penguin just sits there for months or weeks looking after the egg. I'm going to call it Papa Penguin. That's what I'm going to call it, because that penguin is my role model in a way.
That does sound quite weird, but
it's weird. I'm weird. When you get to know me, I'm
great.
like,
I think it's perfect.
It's great. I know what you mean. It does make sense, absolutely.
Definitely.
So yes, I created Papa Penguin, bought the domain name, started getting a schedule of dads to contribute to it and put the stories up there, which both of you contributed. So thank you so much for that. And it's a good mixture, right? It's some fathers who come from, from full-time fathers, part-time fathers, and even women's voices, mothers talking about the benefits of having fathers who are a bit more hands-on and taking the time out. Because I think it's very important to hear the woman's perspective, the mother's perspective of all of this, right? This is not really a man versus woman thing. We're all in it together. And then it's organically growing. I put in the hours when I can. BBC then got hold of me, the Asian network. There's not many Asian fathers out there taking time out. And why is that? It's because they've been brought up in an environment where, again, family, mothers and fathers, first generation, you must be a doctor when you grow up. We're working every hour God sends us to pay the mortgage and pay for your private school fees, or not, depending on the circumstances. Therefore, you must be the first child in this country from our family that must go to university, and you will become a doctor or a dentist. Right. So that child is now being forced to be successful. For them to take time out, that's alien to their parents, right?
Yeah, it's a narrow definition of success, isn't it? But success is also, obviously, is partly being around for your kids is part of the success. Ought to be, but it's in that definition of it, absolutely.
And so I think, in my network, even in my community, in the Asian community, I think there's a lot of work to be done there in terms of educating them and saying it's okay to take time out as well. I think that's why BBC Asian Network then got hold of me saying, can you be part of the Dads panel, talk about your story, share your experiences. So it's just happened organically. I didn't plan to, people say I'm the role model of a father. Okay, maybe I am. I think at the beginning of this journey, I said I'm not trying to be a role model. There are other fathers I'm aware of who are now thinking about, I'm going to take some time out. I'm going to do it.
It's amazing how much that happens. The power of role models. I mean, I've written about it, and you sort of hear about it, and you sort of think, yeah, but really, does that does that really happen? But there you go. Even a penguin dad can be a role model.
Penguin dad.
Even more of a role model if it's a human doing something. You go, oh, hang on, yeah, that's like me. And I mean, obviously, you identify with penguins, but most of us identify with other humans.
I love
And you see other dads doing it, and it is incredible. The power of role models. I mean, I do think it's one of, if not the most powerful driver for change.
Definitely. One thing that struck me, Yash, when I was reading the piece you did for workingdads.co.uk for James, you're talking about the COVID, the workplace support. And I guess an element of that is in the shared parental leave, but also the couple of weeks of COVID leave, I think you mentioned, and how leave was rebranded and COVID leave became quite gender neutral. And I wonder how much the role of your business has played in what you've felt comfortable doing and what you felt comfortable kind of exploring.
I think it's made a massive difference. I think, FIS, the organization I work for, did a great job in terms of the support they provided. And so what they said during this pandemic, and this is very early on, we're going to give every employee globally 2 weeks additional leave, which is in addition to sick leave, and we're going to title it COVID leave, right? And you can take that, not because you come down with COVID, and therefore you've got to take 2 weeks off for COVID. This is 2 weeks for you to take if you need any support for your family, your grandparents, your parents, your children. You've got any impact in your life because of COVID, take it. Now, pre all of this, if my child was ill, would I put my hand on saying I'm taking sick leave because my child is ill? Probably wouldn't. I'd probably say I'm ill and then look after my child.
Yeah.
Right. To your point, Ian, has now got rid of that gender point of it. And now I've taken COVID leave and said, I'm taking COVID leave, dear Mr. Boss, because I've got to look after my children. I have childcare issues. My wife is working. I'm taking it. Yeah, fine. Go for it, Yash. Do what you got to do.
And it's a really interesting one going forward, isn't it? Is that idea of just that's a tiny little change that you don't call it. You don't call it sickness leave. You don't call it childcare leave or whatever. It's just a tiny little change of one word, and suddenly it becomes acceptable. Where there's all sorts of things obviously associated, rightly or wrongly, mainly wrongly, that men shouldn't take sick leave. Men certainly shouldn't be taking time off for childcare. What are you doing? I mean, that is obviously very much wrongly, but that there is a a societal pressure there. You just change one word and suddenly things change. It's a very positive, uplifting story, really, isn't it? There is real potential for change out of this.
And throughout my career, when I've been managing teams, it never occurred to me actually. Now it does, and it's amazing. All my female workers, they're the only ones that are saying, "Yash, I can't come to the office today. I can't work because I've got to look after the kids." I'm like, yeah, no problem. Carry on. Not one father in my 15 years of working has come to me saying, "I'm taking time off to look after my kids."
I bet they did though. I bet some of them did take time off. They just didn't say that. They'd phone up and say, "I'm sick."
Yeah, probably. Probably.
They'd make up some sort of excuse.
Yeah, done a different way. Yeah.
So Ian, it's made a major difference, and credit to the company, right? It's like they're acknowledging that, and there's no barriers. Do what you got to do to look after your family.
And you said about not starting out wanting to be a role model. What kind of opportunities have you sort of seen where I get the sense that now you're much more comfortable with the idea of being a role model and having and sharing stories and helping other dads to understand what's possible. What kind of opportunities have you seen that helps other men, that can help other men to do things differently in their lives?
I think for me, it's just being able to have that platform to be open and honest about there's no right or wrong. If you don't want to take shared parental leave, it's fine. If you don't want to be the hands-on father, it's fine. If you want to be, it's fine. And I think fathers, males, are now understanding that there's a choice here, but you've got to take time out and think about that choice carefully. And if you don't think about it, you're going to keep drifting. And when your child is 14, 15, 16 years old, they're going to need less of you. They're going to need you to be a taxi driver, right? It's now when the child, well, for me, it's now when the child is young, invest in that child now. Get onto the bandwagon now. Don't delay your thought process. I had an old colleague of mine who reached out to me on Papa Penguin saying, thanks for your website. I've been reading all the stories. It's made me realize that I'm actually a failure. I've been a failure father. I've been disconnected from my child, and you've made me realize that I've got to sort my stuff out. And so that platform is allowing people to, behind the scenes, because look, most men I know are not very extrovert, want to talk about stuff, we keep things to ourselves, right? Yep. They can go and read what they want to read and take what they want from it. That platform I've created, I know has made some change, because I've got direct emails directly saying either fantastic or I've realized I'm a failure. And it's not about being a failure. It's about witnessing what's out there and making a change ASAP.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said it's interesting because your kids are young.
Mine are young, yeah.
Kids by nature are young, but you know, within the age range of being a child, they're young. That you said, you know, get on it now while they're young. There's interesting research, which I don't know if I may have mentioned before. I don't know. I do so many of these things, I forget where I've said it. But you know that men actually focus on. There's research about sort of men saying when they think their children need them, and one of the times is the switch to secondary school. There's a weird thing that is particularly amongst men that they think I need to be around for my kids at that point. Now, I don't know why, and I don't know what, you know, how men's transition to secondary school perhaps is different to girls, and that's why they're looking back and thinking my kids are going to need me. I don't know what it is. But it's interesting. You're saying, you know, when they get older, you'll be a taxi driver, but actually your kids are going to need you then. But as you say, if you get on it now, you know, you make the bond, you form the relationship, you open the channels for discussion more than anything. Then when they need you at that age, you're still around and you're part of their lives. And
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely. And I say to my wife, when I look at my son and my daughter now, I want them to be my mates. I want to have the relationship. I said to her, I want to go to the pub and just relax and just have a banter. Father's important, absolutely, the discipline part. But that relationship, I think, if you build it up from the early ages, you'll have that mate relationship. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, because
I think that's a really interesting point. And unfortunately, it's not one to discuss here in any great depth. Unfortunately, it's for a different podcast. But I think it's always a really interesting discussion, isn't it? Is to what extent you are a father and a parent, what that role is. And to what extent that clashes with the idea of being a friend. You know, there's people who will say, you don't want to be a child's friend, you're their parent. They don't want you to be their friend. And there are others that we go, I mean, like you, I'm going to be, you know, I want to be their mate. And perhaps, you know, of course, in truth, it's somewhere between the two, isn't it? You know, there are things when you have to be, you know, the authoritarian and provide boundaries. And there's times when you want to be their friend and mess around and sort of thing. And, you know, your dad is obviously combining it all and finding the right mix that works for you. But it's always an interesting discussion point. I tell you what, here's what you should do. If you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the comments, and if you're listening on iTunes, then get in touch on Twitter or whatever or Facebook. Go to Ian's Facebook. He's got loads of Facebook stuff going on. Right, start a conversation. Let's start some engagement.
Talk about these things. And in terms of talking about things now, we're onto the sort of tip section. So, James, what have you got after last week's pretty amazing tip around winky holes and wearing practical pants? James, what kind of tips have you? What tip have you brought us this week?
Well, you've brought up the whole winky hole issue. I don't know if I really want to go. Do I want to do winky holes 2 weeks in a row? I don't think we need to discuss winky holes two weeks in a row. But
new tip.
Well, there is a follow up on the whole winky hole issue, but I don't think we want to go there.
We don't have time.
I don't know. Do you know what? I think probably my tip this week is before you sit down to do a podcast or whatever, make sure you have a pen to hand, because otherwise you'll have to grab whichever one is there, and it might end up being this one, which is a pink pen with a fluffy thing on the top and a chick, and that's okay. when you're podcasting, it's okay. But if you're in a meeting with your boss on Zoom, then I don't really. I mean, I know we're all a bit more relaxed about Zoom these days, but I still don't think that's very professional. Get a pen. Always carry a pen. There's a tip for dads or anybody, really. It's always good advice. I mean, we've basically had the Yash's tip. It's like, you know, telegraph your mood via your hat. But maybe he's got another one. Have you got any other tips you would pass on to dads, working dads in general?
You should learn how to change a nappy in pitch black.
Yes.
I'll tell you why. And I've been practicing, and I've got it nailed. So my son will wake up in the middle of the night because he's now realised he's done a wee, and he's coming to 2 years old, but he won't sleep otherwise. So I've learned how to go in, pitch black. I'm half asleep. I pull the nappy out the drawer, no lights, put him on his changing mat, take his sleep suit off, take his trousers down, open the nappy up, throw it away, get the new one, all pitch black, right?
Yeah.
Find the foldy flappy bit with the sticky bit in, put it under, close it, put it back, and then put him back in the cot, and he hasn't been stimulated by light.
Yeah.
Back to sleep again.
That's ninja. Right. That is ninja.
I'm going to change my tip. My tip is now, if you're listening to this on iTunes, go and watch it on YouTube. Watch Yash acting out, changing a nappy in his sleep. You can close his eyes. It was amazing. He's a top skill. He's a very good tip. That is a good one to learn. Yeah, we've been there and done that. That is a very good one.
It's ninja skills.
That is. Ninja. I don't know how many you have to practice before you get it right, though.
2 years worth.
2 years worth. Yeah.
I just cracked it last night. Night.
Well, that's a celebration. That is great.
Right, it's a tip. Get on it now. What's your tip this week, Ian?
Mine's not nearly as exciting as either of yours. Going back to Yash, we were talking before we came on, and also during this, in terms of going to the gym and doing your exercise, doing what it takes, and you're wearing the hat that says, those people, this is the gym hat for those people watching on YouTube. And if you're not watching, Yash has got a gym hat on. He's done his exercise. He's kind of read, this is a signal that says, I'm going to do my exercise. And it's important for burnout. And managing that, I think everyone needs to understand what it is that it takes to feel content and stress-free. And whatever it is to then negotiate it with your partner, if you've got a partner, negotiate when you're going to do that and how long you can do it for, so that you get what you need. And other people do. It may be working out in your garage like Yash does, or my little thing is computer gaming. I do like a bit of PlayStation in the evening, and I do it when Lisa goes to bed on a Thursday, because Friday morning I don't have to get up until 7 o'clock, so I do a little bit of late night gaming. And actually, for me, it's pretty mindless, but it's a real kind of it just breaks everything up. That's what I need. That's my little thing. I need to do it once or twice a week.
Whatever works. Yeah.
Whatever works. Yeah.
I've never owned I've got to say, I've never owned a games console in my life.
I'm just rubbish at it. That's why I don't do it. I can do Mario, the racing one, but other than that, I'm just hopeless. Right, there you go. Again, comment if you want to comment about computer games. Yeah, let's get some engagement going.
That's on gaming.
Right, we're back to the less than a minute, which is not less than a minute, but we better wind up here. Thanks for joining us, Yash. Yeah, if you want to read Yash's contribution to working dads in lockdown, it's on workingdads.co.uk just now. I think it's actually top of the shop. I think it might be the featured item, because I just changed
it.
Nice. It's a very good one. It is. And Papa Penguin, was it papapenguin.org?
We're an organisation, not a company.
Yeah, that's where you want to go to read all those excellent case studies. There are lots of good stuff on there. Thanks for joining us. Ian, is there more credits that I've forgotten?
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to it, basically. So if you want to listen to any of the other episodes or watch them on YouTube, then we're at inspiringdads.co.uk /lockdown-dads. There's a button in the top corner that'll take you to the podcast. But thank you very much for being here. This is episode number 21. We are back next week, as always, doing more conversations. And I hope everyone, Yash, thank you very much for being here, and I hope everyone stays safe.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Take care.